What is going on, nerds? We have a big show. This is my first solo show in a long time. Certainly the first one of 2022. So happy New Year, everybody. Here's what we're going to cover according to my notes. Look at this. We're going to cover, well, happy New Year. Sorry, I already said that. We're going to look at COVID stats. We're going to thank some members for supporting the channel. We're going to go over political betting odds. We're going to unbox, dig into a couple of the people candidates. And then we're going to talk about some Twitter controversy or Twitter debates I've been having. But hopefully you'll enjoy it. Before we get into it, let's get Andrew Yang to warm us up.
I hooked up with Drew Yang, that's who I hooked up. Yo, there's no place to hide now that he's arrived. I'm saying he ain't playing now with this campaign. Bang, dang, it's and Drew, come roll with the Yang Gang. Drew Yang, that's who I hooked up with. Drew Yang, that's who I hooked up with. Drew Yang, that's who I hooked up. Yo, there's no place to hide now that he's arrived. I'm saying he ain't playing now with this campaign. Bang, dang, it's and.
Hello, nerds. Nerds for Humanity. All right. By the way, there's already some people in the live chat. Haven't seen folks in a while, but where are you joining from? Where are you joining from? I'll see if I can call out some of those folks. Oh, look. So just go ahead and put that in the chat. So we're going to do a few things today. We're going to talk about the state of COVID. I know with the Omicron, it's a little bit like nuanced in that we see a lot more cases, but then we also, it's not quite as severe as Delta. And then there's all kinds of, the anti-vax people are still, wow, I'm like red on this screen, like pink. So sorry for the weird colorization. All right. Let's see. Ethan Jury is joining us from the most crucial political location of all, the state of Iowa. Ethan, I wonder if you think the primaries will be in Iowa as well, or do you think that that era of Iowa, New Hampshire dominance is coming to an end? Who knows? I am not sure where this person is joining from, but there. And Jessica Little is joining from Arkansas, or as my 11-year-old pronounced the other day, mispronounced, Arkansas. But it's funny how when you see names pronounced a certain way, you just assume that's how it's always been done. But he was like, well, why isn't it pronounced Arkansas? And I was like, I'm not sure. Ira, hello, nerds. All right. Let's get into our first charts of 2022. And it's going to be about COVID, and it tells a mixed story because I don't think, like everything, like it's so sad. COVID's one of those things that requires a little bit of nuance, and it's not purely black and white, but I know the state of political discourse really appreciates that. Oh, Ira's coming from the great state of Alaska. Very cool. All right, so let's get on with the first charts. Hope you had a happy new year. Yes, same to you, Ira, and to all the nerds that are watching this. Okay. Ethan says that Iowa and New Hampshire are irrelevant. Makes me hate every election cycle when they get overexposure. Well, you know, good for you, given that you're in Iowa, to be willing to kind of challenge the kind of dominance of those two states in picking our president. Shows a great intellectual honesty and willingness to challenge your own position of influence. Okay, so let's see if I can figure out how to share screen. I haven't done this in so long. Let's do this. What happens? Oh, look, it just works. Son of a gun. Okay. Don't forget to also share this live stream so other people can join us. Like and share. Appreciate it. And if you want to support Nerds for Humanity in 2022, which will be a big year, click that join button. We'll be giving shout outs to our members in halfway through the show. Okay, so let's take a look here. These are our reported cases at the moment. And as you can see, there's somebody just hit the like button. Thank you. There are a lot of them. Daily average cases is almost 400,000. New cases on January 1st was 161,000. So that's a lot more. It's actually higher than the peak of Delta in January 11th. I think that might have been Delta. Well, whatever the January 11th, 2021 peak was 250,000 total daily average cases, 226 new. And now we're up to 386 daily average, but only 161 new. So I suppose that's good. Now, what I will tell you is that the case numbers are probably, and I've been watching a lot of the interviews with Fauci and other experts, I think the case numbers are not quite as meaningful of a metric as the hospitalization numbers. And if we look here, hospitalizations, I can't dive deep into this, unfortunately. Let's see if I can find. Here we go. Here's the hospitalizations, which is like the orange line here. Like, so in Washington, D.C., hospitalizations are up. So whenever you hear people say, oh, Delta's Omicron's just like a sore throat, hospitalizations are up 187% compared to last winter's U.S. peak in Washington, D.C. In New York, they are up 85% compared to last winter's peak. New Jersey, they're up 100%. So, yes, cases are up like, whatever, in New Jersey, like freaking 355%. But hospitalizations are up 100%. So, in Florida, cases are up 265% and hospitalizations are up 50% versus last winter's peak. And as you guys remember, last winter was not a fun time. Kudos to Hawaii, where their hospitalizations are only up about 24% versus the last peak. So I guess the bottom line here is that, yes, the case rate is a little bit, it's high, and there's a lot of people with asymptomatic cases. So, you shouldn't freak out because of the case rate. But the people generally don't go to hospitals if they're feeling okay and they just have a sore throat. And what you see here is that, in places like every state, it's up. In Florida, it's up almost 50% versus the last peak. In Maryland, it's up 100% versus the last peak. In Massachusetts, it's up 50% versus the last winter's peak. In New York, it's up 92% versus the last winter's peak. Where are the hospitalizations per 100,000 people the most? Now, this is kind of different than the political narrative. The Republicans would probably say, oh, look at those left-wing liberals. They can't even manage the pandemic with all their lockdowns. And they would have expected California to be full of COVID hospitalizations. It isn't. Yellow is actually the least hospitalizations per 100,000 people. And then the Democrats would probably say, all those terrible folks in Florida, DeSantis is doing a terrible job. But their hospitalization rate is actually not that high. I mean, there's a couple of spots where it's a little bit on the orange side. The same way where in California, there's a couple of spots around close to Arizona where it's in the orange and even in the red side, like Brawley County. But most of the worst hospitalization is actually, I guess you would call this like in this Great Lakes region here, and a little bit even in the Northeast, especially around Pennsylvania. Like if you look at, say, you know, Punxsutawney, 37,000 hospitalizations per 100,000 people, versus where I'm coming to you from in San Francisco in the oh look, Redwood City or Mountain View, which is 4 hospitalizations per 100,000 residents. And then in North Carolina, you see some hotspots like 90 in Wilmington, North Carolina, 90 hospitalizations per 100,000 people. So TLDR on COVID is, yes, the case numbers are ridiculous. It's like a vertical line, but it's not quite as like, hair on fire, panic mode. You would look at that line and you'd say like, my God, it's a vertical line. It's the hospitalization line, which I think is a little bit more something to keep an eye on. And that is definitely trending up, but it hasn't exceeded some of the peaks nationally. And then by region, you definitely see problem areas like Washington, D.C., New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, Florida, Rhode Island, Delaware, where it is up, somewhere at least around 50% over last winter's peak. So I know there are some people who claim that people are being hospitalized for reimbursement reasons, but honestly, like I don't know anyone who likes going to the hospital. So if you're being admitted to a hospital, it's generally not a good thing. Most of us would probably want to stay home, isolate, and just sleep it off. If you're getting admitted to a hospital, that's a problem. In fact, speaking of hospitalizations, I know I was going to share this before, but let me just talk about this now while it's top of mind about hospitalizations. If I go to my Twitter feed, I was sharing this data, this poll, if I can find it. Where's my poll? Here it is. So I asked some of the folks who follow me on Twitter at Nerds for Yang, how much does it cost the healthcare system to hospitalize a COVID patient? And most of the people got it right, but you may not be obvious that it costs on average $20,000 to hospitalize a COVID patient, and 85% of those hospitalized patients are not vaccinated. So by definition, it's kind of an avoidable, at least 85% of the time, an avoidable hospitalization. And those costs are borne by everybody watching this. It's borne by Medicare, Medicaid, the employer insurance plan that you're on, the private insurance plan that you're on. That cost gets spread across. It's not like someone says, hey, I don't want to be vaccinated. They end up in a hospital costing the system on average $20,000, and then they pay out of pocket the $20,000. No, they say, I don't want to be vaccinated. It's my body, my choice. Then they get in trouble, and then everybody bails them out, basically. And that number is actually a little bit even on the conservative side. There's been some studies. Oh, we have a super chat from Marcus. Let's add that to the broadcast. Love your show. Reaching out about my mayoral run. Do I have to have all my paperwork to make your lease? Keep up the great. No, Marcus, you can. First thing I would suggest you. First of all, thank you for the super chat.
Hello, nerds.
Andrew says hello, nerds. First thing I would do is list yourself on ofthepeople.us, and then I generally will ask for people who, so that you can list yourself now, right? Like as we're doing the stream. Just go to ofthepeople.us. It's free. Create a profile and then say, make me a candidate. And then the second thing is if you are a trending candidate of the people, I will almost always invite you onto the Nerds for Humanity podcast for an interview. So thanks again for that super chat. So like I was saying, so it's $14 billion or $13.8 billion just between the months of June and November for preventable COVID hospitalizations because of lack of vaccination. And that means that's June, July, August, September, October, November. So 6 months, $14 billion. So you say it's about a little over $2 billion a month that we're all paying for due to avoidable hospitalizations. And in fact, that number is a little bit conservative. I think there were some estimates that indicated that it's actually even higher. So like some hospitalizations can be in the neighborhood of several $100,000 for complex patients. So as you can see here, let me move this. And let me move that. And let me close that. So in the state of Alabama, if you have a complex patient, meaning they generally have a lot of other health issues, the cost to treat their COVID hospitalization can be almost $300,000. Alaska, if they're complex, $400,000. Arizona, $361,000. California, $461,000. So it can be hundreds of thousands of dollars if you need hospitalization due to COVID. And again, a lot of these are avoidable. So, if you are in the category of, eligible for vaccination, which is pretty much everybody like above the age of 5 or something, please consider getting vaccinated because it will reduce the chance of you ending up in the hospital and also costing the rest of the country a ton of money in avoidable healthcare costs. And it's also true that many of these hospitals in the last surge had to actually cancel preventative care procedures because they just didn't have enough staff. They were overrun by all these unvaccinated patients. Any rate, so that's the story on the COVID stuff. Let me see if there's any other. So we can look at state trends here. If you look at hospitalization per 100,000, the highest rate of hospitalization per 100,000 is DC, Ohio, Delaware, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Jersey, Michigan, Maryland, Missouri, New York, West Virginia, Kentucky, Connecticut, Arizona, Wisconsin, Kansas. These are where you're going to see the most hospitalizations. And in terms of case rates, which generally are a leading indicator of hospitalizations, it is, let's see, case rate per 100,000. DC, New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, Florida. Wow, Florida case rates are up 700% in the last 14 days. But Puerto Rico is up 1,600%. Florida, Rhode Island, Delaware, Massachusetts, Hawaii, man. And then if you look at total cases per 100,000, that's what we were just looking at. That's where you have the highest number of cases per 100,000. DC, New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, Florida, Rhode Island, Delaware, Massachusetts. And then if you look at the death rate per 100,000, the rate of highest death is North Mariana Islands, Michigan, Tennessee, Ohio, New Hampshire, Arizona, New Mexico, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Indiana, Kentucky. All right, so those are where you've got the most deaths. Now, in terms of all time, where are the people most vaccinated? That's an interesting statistic. Let's take a look at that. Most vaccinated is Vermont, Rhode Island, Maine, Guam, Connecticut, and Massachusetts, all just a bit under 80%. I remember the goal was 80%. That's where you have the most vaccinated. The least vaccinated, wow, look at that. Idaho, less than 50% are vaccinated. You've got Wyoming, 48%, Alabama, 48%, Mississippi, Louisiana, U.S. Virgin Islands, Georgia, Arkansas, Tennessee. These are all less than 50%. I guess Georgia and Arkansas are just over 50%. So half the people are not fully vaccinated. So that is the data for you. Now I know people want to hate on Florida, and certainly I don't really love that governor there. But in fairness, Florida actually has a pretty good vaccination rate, probably because they have a lot of older people, and they have 63% vaccinated. Actually, I would have expected it to be much higher given the number of older people living in Florida. But California, where I'm coming to you from, well, not that much better, 66%. So, we all have room to improve. Okay, so let's now look at. Oh, now this is a really interesting chart here. The average daily cases, and this goes through to November 20th. Actually, someone's asking about Texas. Let me, engaging life moments. Let me think if it's Texas. If Texas, I can find here for you. Hold on. I zoomed in. Tejas vaccination rate is 57%, so a little bit lower than the national average of 62%. It has, let's see, we can even dive deeper into it. This is the Texas rates have certainly gone up 161% of cases. Their hospitalizations have gone up 62%. So on January 1, there have been 5,950 people who are Texans sitting in a Texas hospital due to COVID. They had 53 deaths on Jan 1, which is coming down, so good for them. But yeah, definitely hospitalizations are up 62%, and generally being hospitalized is again not a fun thing. It's generally not something you want to happen. Certainly not for any of our family. Now, where are the biggest kind of hotspots? It looks like they are around this Harris County. 1 in 7 people have COVID. What's this? Wow. Atascosa County, 1 in 6 people. Ellis County, 1 in 5 people? Seriously? Jesus. What the hell? 1 in 5 people in Ellis County have COVID, and 1 in 376 have died. So and in Johnson County, 1 out of 297 have died. Yikes. So I know people want to say that COVID is just like a sore throat, but generally people wouldn't be dying and going to the hospital 1 out of a few hundred in your community if it's just a sore throat. All right, so let's go back. Here you have the rates of cases 5 times higher for unvaccinated people than fully vaccinated people. So anybody who says, hey, the vaccine doesn't prevent you or reduce the chance of you getting infected, like, that's not really true. Your death rate will be 13 times higher for the unvaccinated people than the fully vaccinated. Okay, Jessica Little is asking about Arkansas. Okay. But let me just remind everybody of this chart here. You are 13 times more likely to die if you are not fully vaccinated. And I would imagine the hospitalization rate, unfortunately we don't have that chart, would also say something similar. All right, you are asking about Arkansas. So let's take a look at Arkansas. Here it is. Wow. Arkansas cases definitely moving up. They were on average 424 around Halloween. 424 daily cases, and now they're 2,950. So almost 6 times an increase in a matter of a couple months. Now, what about hospitalization? Hospitalizations are not, quite as scary. They're up 10%, 649 per day. 17 deaths per day, up 20%. And if you look at hospitalizations by age in Arkansas, you see definitely a lot of 70 and older, but it's not only the 70 and older. You have people in their 60s, this line here, and then people in their 50s, and then even people 18 to 29, like just, I guess, yesterday, there were 4 people who were age 30 that were hospitalized. So in terms of hotspots, let's see, let's say per capita, Lee County, 1 in 4 people have COVID, and 1 in 161 have died. In Lincoln County, 1 in 3 people have contracted COVID, and 1 in 225 have died. In Jackson County, 1 in 4 have contracted it, and 1 in 356 have died. And then Sevier County, 1 in 4 have contracted, and 1 in 270 have died. So if you look at hospitalization, vaccination levels, it's only about 43% in Craighead County. In Jackson County, only 36% of the population has been vaccinated. In Calhoun County, Arkansas, 1 in 3 have been vaccinated, 2 in 3 have not. Polk County, it's basically Arkansas looks like it's only about 30% are getting vaccinated. And now if you look at the death rate, it's looks like 1 in 400 in Pulaski County. Yeah, or 1 in 400 in Lanoke County are passing away of COVID. And then if you look at the vaccinations, that Pulaski County, 55% have been vaccinated. And Lanoke County, only 45%. So there is a little bit of a relationship here between vaccinations, risk levels, and total cases and death rates. So, that's the hospital. This is the daily new hospitalizations, and you can see it's going up from, a low point. In Arkansas, there was a point where, these are admissions per 100,000. So again, this is per 100,000, not absolute number. Around 3 per 100,000 in November of 2016, and now it's 6 per 100,000. So it's doubled. The hospitalization rate has basically doubled in Arkansas. And yeah, that's unfortunate. But I mean, the good news is that if you look at these charts, yes, the case rate is way up. You don't see a similar spike in hospitalizations. It's up double since the low point, and deaths are definitely up, but it's not spiking. Now, we don't know what that chart's going to look like 2 weeks from now. Sometimes you get COVID, and then a few weeks later, you see the death rates show up. Let's hope that's not the case. Okay, Ira wants to look at Alaska. All right, sure. Let's do it. Let's zoom out here. What happened? Alaska. There we go. Alaska. There we go. Okay. Well, Alaska's not quite as scary. Case rates are up for sure. Daily average 266 on December 30th and 150 on December 26th, and it was as low as 26 cases in June. And now it's up to 266, so about 10 times higher than June. The death rate is, well, for Jan 1, it's less than 1, so it might be a reporting thing. But total reported deaths in the last, say, 90 days looks pretty modest. I mean, the reporting in Alaska is a little bit jagged. Hospital admissions by age. You see hospitalizations starting to go up ever since the low point of July. They went up in August, September, October, and they really spiked a lot in end of October. And now they're okay. They're okay in Alaska. Now, where are you seeing the hot spots? 5 cases a day in one part of in Kusilvac. Sitka, definitely seeing a little bit of a spike in some places, but not terrible. Now, where are the most cases per 100,000? Sitka, Haines, and Juneau. And you've got cases rising 300% in Juneau. But the data is kind of mixed here. We don't really have a lot of data on hospitalizations and luckily not on deaths. So net, I would say Alaska had a peak of hospitalizations actually at the end of October. And you see reported deaths per day in Alaska. December 28th, there were 12 deaths. So seems like, I would say, like, you know, Alaska seems to be looking way better than other states. Certainly very different than the charts we were seeing for Arkansas. Ethan wants to know about Iowa. Okay. I don't mind, Ethan. I'm here for you all. And I do love charts. So let's go to Iowa. Iowa. Okay. Oh, look. Iowa case rate. I mean, it was as low as 66 in June. And now it's 1,649. Oh, wow. That's this big jump from, let's zoom in here. From June, Iowa only had like 60, 70 cases, right? And then it looks like after July 4th, it started picking up. I'm guessing because of, you know, people getting together and congregating and stuff. And then it kept going up all the way to 1,800 cases in September. But then it came down. And now they're at 1,600. Let's look at hospitalizations. Hospitalization rate has definitely gone up, looks like, since the fall. But again, it's not surging. Death rate has also gone up since the fall. But it's not as near, the death rate and hospitalization rate has not reached the peak of last December. So I think Iowa is handling this better than it did. let's say, I mean, there was a point, look at this, where in November of last year, November of 2020, there were 9 people hospitalized per 100,000. And right now, there's only 5. So Iowa's doing way better. Where is the biggest hotspot is Humboldt County, where you're seeing 135 cases per 100,000 people. And then if we look at the death rate, okay, Des Moines, 1 in 572 dying. Not as bad as, let's say, we were looking at Arkansas before, was like 1 in 400. Scott County, Iowa, 1 in 558. Ooh, Black Hawk County, 1 in 329 dying. And then Lynn County, 1 in 500. So, not terrible compared to some other states. And then in terms of its vaccination rate, pretty good vaccination rate in Iowa, 70%. Remember, I think in Arkansas it was like 30%. Buena Vista County, 60% vaccinated. Your lowest vaccination rate is in Davis County. That's more like Arkansas level, 35%. But, you got Des Moines, Polk County, 64%. Like, not pretty good. And in terms of where is it the toughest, in terms of case rate, Humboldt and Webster County, and that's where you have about a 50% vaccination rate. And where are you least seeing COVID is Buena Vista and Floyd, where it's only 15 per 100,000, and you have 64% and 50% vaccination rate there. So, yeah, I would say, Ira's asking, well, then which state is the worst? Well, we can look at the data and find out. So let's go back. We're going to give some recognition to the best and worst states. So in terms of number of COVID per 100,000, the worst is D.C., New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, Florida, and Rhode Island. We'll just say like maybe the top 10. Delaware, Massachusetts, Hawaii. Those are pretty bad in terms of number of cases. But let's look at hospitalizations, because we know a lot of these cases could be asymptomatic, could be mild. Hospitalization, by definition, generally not mild. So where are we seeing the worst rate of hospitalization? D.C., Ohio, Delaware, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Illinois, New Jersey, Michigan, Maryland, Missouri, New York, West Virginia. A lot of hospitalizations there. And then in deaths per 100,000, the worst would be Northern Mariana, Michigan, Tennessee, Ohio, New Hampshire, Arizona, New Mexico, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island. So those are the worst. And then in terms of the best, least cases per 100,000, Guam, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Oregon, Alaska. Oh, so Alaska is actually one of the best states out there. And look, Texas, one of the least number of cases. In hospitalization, where you see the least? You see the least in American Samoa, Virgin Islands, Alaska, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, Vermont, Wyoming, Oregon, Montana, Washington State, Idaho. And in terms of death, where are you seeing the least death per 100,000 people? You are seeing the least death in Alaska, D.C., Puerto Rico, Florida. Props to Florida on that one. Louisiana, Hawaii, U.S. Virgin Islands, and California. So just goes to show you that the color of your jersey sometimes doesn't match up with the kind of data, which is good, because the world is more nuanced than Democrats bad, Republicans good, or Republicans bad, Democrats good. Jeremy is saying, hey, what about Missouri? Okay, we'll take a look at Missouri. Who would have thought that this would be so much on the state-by-state stats, but that's what the people want. So I'm here for you. All right, case rates, kind of like every other state, went from a low of 450 cases per day, almost even lower in June, 383 per day, to now 4,575 per day in the state of Missouri. But, hospitalizations are actually up as well, kind of close to their peak in around August. And they're up 21%. So on Jan 1, there were 2,414 people in the state of Missouri who were hospitalized. 23 died, which is down a little bit versus the 14-day average. Now, you got to ask yourself, well, will this peak that we're seeing in case counts have a trailing effect then on, or have a leading indicator effect, and we're going to see hospitalizations kind of poke up a little bit after that, and then unfortunately death rates come up. So you could see that phenomenon here, where there was like a starting of a surge of cases in July, and then you see the hospitalization rates kind of pick up a little bit after that, and then the death rates pick up a little bit after that, although not as much. So hopefully the death rate will stay, in that 20 per day range. If you look at hospital admissions by age, you see, again, this is a lot of people think it's only people like 70 and older that are getting admitted into hospitals, but there are people in their 50s that are getting admitted, in their 30s, even 18 to 29 being admitted, under 18, 3 per 100,000. So, yes, I agree. I don't mean to say that the death rate in these situations is a good thing. I'm just saying that it's not quite as extreme as the case rate, and hopefully it will, have a dampened representation in the subsequent weeks. But obviously, every death is tragic, especially if it's a preventable death. We know from the data that people who are fully vaccinated seem to be dying at 1/13 the rate of people who are not fully vaccinated. So, anyway, Missouri, you have your hotspots around St. Louis County, and in terms of deaths, you're getting 1 in 363 in St. Louis County, 1 in 468 in St. Louis. St. Charles, 1 in 500. So not quite Arkansas level, but kind of getting in that territory. And then where are the most hospitalizations? Let's see. They are in Atchison County and Harrison County and Gentry, where those hospitalization rates, let's see, where's the biggest change? Oh, shiza. In Vernon County, the hospitalization rate is up 400%. Yikes. What is going on in Vernon County? Cases have, okay, that's your case rate, but look at the hospitalization rate. Yeah, up 4x. Yikes. All right. See more details. Oh, one of the, I'm not saying, you can draw your own conclusions about that. But in this Vernon County where they're seeing all these hospitalizations, there's only 34% vaccination. You see that? That could contribute to ending up in the hospital. Anyway, so that is Missouri. Now, I'm going to have to move off of the COVID stats because I know we've been talking for quite some time. And I want to make sure that that we hit some other topics. By the way, there's 20 people currently watching us. So cool to see you all. Jeremy makes an observation. Interesting. Those top counties are very rural. Yeah. I would not be surprised if people thought, hey, I'm in a rural area. I don't need to, this COVID thing is just in cities. I don't need to get vaccinated, or I don't need those masks, and I don't need to take precautions. And then that, obviously results in greater risk, and greater risk results in some numbers. Jeremy says, what expectations do you have for Biden administration's COVID test website? Well, first of all, let's keep it real. I think the Biden administration thought Delta was the last variant, and they probably did not ramp up their test preparation as much as they should have. So I know a lot of Trumpers out there say like, oh, Tom, he's such a corporate Democrat. But, Biden, you got to hold the man accountable, right? He was in charge, and we didn't have enough tests. So I hope that the test website rolls out well, but, there's a lot of demand for these tests, and there will be more because we're going to try to, get back to normal. And the way to get back to normal is not to lock down, and it's not to act like there's no pandemic. You've got to find some way to balance it, and early testing and isolation could help. So to answer your question, my expectations is that it will roll out well, because if it doesn't, I think it will be a massive hit to his chances of re-election, and it will be an example of where, we have to hold Biden accountable to the same level of competence that we wanted to see from Trump. And I guarantee you, if Trump were in office and the testing was BS and not available, I would have been the first to say that this guy's not delivering. And I would hold Biden to the same expectation. Now, I've already heard people say, well, but Omicron is the beginning of the end. It's the last major mutation. I don't know. I hope they're right. But I think if history proves anything, it's like you probably want to be over-prepared and not under-prepared. All right, so now let's give a quick shout-out to some of the people who make this live stream possible. These are the Nerds for Humanity channel members. After that, we're going to go into betting odds for the 2022 and 2024 election. And then finally, we'll highlight some of the people candidates and talk about some of the controversy or debates I've been engaging in on Twitter, if you are really up for it. But let's give a quick shout out to some of our members who make this channel possible. So let's do this. Share. And while you're watching this, if you could do me a solid and like and share, I would appreciate it. Let's see here. Share. There we go. Okie dokie. Whoopsie daisy. Oh, I'm adjusting the wrong camera. Okay. So the highest level member who has been, here we go. The highest level member who has been supporting this channel for 21 months overall and has been a senior vice president for 8 months is Soldier One. So Soldier One, thank you for paying for our streaming costs. And just, gives me a little encouragement to know that people value this content. I know we're not the biggest channel on YouTube. All right. And I know that the Yang Gang has kind of dissipated a little bit, but hopefully you still want data. Kristen Slevin, Laura Lane, and Bike are vice president levels. So thank you very much for all of your support, Kristen, Laura, and Bike. And if you're wondering, like, hey, how do I help out this channel? If you're watching this now, there's a join link. And if you click on that, you can join. It's as low as like $2 a month. And none of the money goes into my pocket. It just goes to contributing to a portion of the monthly expenses, which are in excess of what we get from members. But we appreciate it nonetheless. And Howard Hardcore Nerds, we have Mike, Gene, David. Let me move my face here. Hold on. I'm like covering up. There we go. Okay, let's go back here. Oh, now my little, golly, what an amateur, freaking amateur hour. Hold on 1 second. How about we do it like that? I like them apples. Okay. Let's go back here. Okay. I think we're good. Mike Chang, Gene, David, DK, Jackalego, Kirsch, Mr. History, Byram, Mona, Susan, Yang, Tony, Robert, Dean, Stat, Galessa, J. Perrin, AH, J. Bryan, Vivian, Dana, Yoda, Jason, and Parth are all hardcore nerds. And then the entry level, and I think that's only a couple bucks a month, is the verified nerds. And we have Lisa, Sugar, Albert, Brandon, Peter, Arez, Brian, Your Mommin, Sophia, Jadwiga, Mike, Doris, Emerald, Lori, Ben, Roger, Lisa, Vaughn, Rasta, Elizabeth Norris, who I think is in the live stream right now, James, Emma, Hui, Ira. Wasn't Ira Is Ira the same dude? I think Ira's in this freaking chat right now. So, hey, Ira. Patrick, Shoni, Philip, Jameson, William, Jameson, Doctor, William, Karen, Monica, Ardent, Semery, Mai, David, Brittany, Sasha, Juana, Warren, Lucky, Kevin, Finney, and H3. And out of all of our members, our oldest member is Mike Chang. Our oldest members are Mike Chang, Lisa Childress, Jean Lim, Sugar Sweet, Kristen Slevin, Albert, Tom, Brandon, David, Peter Knight, and Arez. And our youngest members are little baby nerds. Welcome, baby nerds. Hold on. Why can't this sort? There we go. Finney Helps, H3 Simp, and Kevin LaHero. I think that's how I might pronounce it. All right. So now that we've thanked our members, let's get on with the rest of the program, which I think is going to be betting odds, right? I think that's what we promised. Let me see my little, let's see here. Oh, we'll do this. Default scene. All right. Let's cross this out together. Did we wish everybody Happy New Year? Yes. Did we go over COVID? Yes, in great detail. Did we say thank you to all our members? Yes. By the way, I'm going to give a cowbell for our members. Thanks, members. Did we go over betting odds? No. All right. Let's do that. Let me know if you enjoy the the tablet agenda crossing out. I enjoy crossing things out of to-do lists. All right. Let's see here. Betting odds. Here we go. Let's do this. We go. Bam. Bam. All right. 2022. Jessica Little says, not impressed. I think you're saying you're not impressed with the the iPad to-do list. I feel you. All right. Well, I asked. I got my answer. We may have to reduce the cool, what I thought was the cool display of our to-do list. Okay. Senate control for 2022. Republicans, 70% likely to gain control of the U.S. Senate. Well, that's interesting and unfortunate. Okay, Jessica's like saying it's okay. So I think she felt bad for me. It's okay, Jessica. All right, so it was 50-50 chance up through August, and then you could probably, it probably matches the rise of Omicron, right? Then September, October, and now it's, damn, well, 28% chance that the Democrats will have control of the Senate. What about the House? Even worse. 82% chance that the Republican Party will control the House, and it was it was never 50-50. I think history has shown that whoever controls the White House loses the House of Representatives, and the betters are saying that it's yes, I know, but I don't have a lot of time because this morning I had to clean up the house, I had to feed the children. You know, I had to get some of this data ready. Okay. Mickey is saying that she's down with the tablet to-do list. Okay. Ira says, hey, does this have anything to do with the pullout from Afghanistan? Let's see. Hold on. Now we're going to involve the Pixel phone. When did U.S. pull out troops from Afghanistan?
Withdrawal of the United States troops from Afghanistan lasted from February 29th, 2020 to August 30th, 2021.
So, according to the Google Assistant, it was August 30th, 2021, which was the you could argue that's when started like a nice increase for the Republicans, and then at least for the House control, and then the Senate control. It crossed over. Oh yeah, just around end of August. So it might be more about Afghanistan than Omicron. Let me see. Hey Google, when did Omicron mutation emerge?
These are the top results.
Oh, you can't even give me an answer? All right, let's see here. Emergence of Omicron was reported to the WHO November 2021 in Botswana and November 14th in South Africa. So you can see here that the Republicans were coming up well before Omicron only kind of emerged around here, November-ish. Well, you definitely see a nice spike. Maybe? I don't know. Yeah. But Omicron really wasn't discovered until around here. So I don't think we can blame Omicron for the Republican. I think Ira might be onto something, which is the rise, the Afghanistan pullout, which is ironic because I think President Trump had promised that for 4 years and didn't do it. But I know a lot of people say, well, the way Biden pulled out of Afghanistan was a complete disaster. It's like, well, that whole war, let's be real here, that whole war was a complete disaster. I don't know if there's any way to end a disastrous war like perfectly. But at any rate, Senate should control, Republicans will control the Senate in 2022, and they will control the House in 2022. And what about Florida? Florida governor will likely be Ron DeSantis by an 83% chance. Now, 2024. So basically, in summary, 2022 is going to be a disaster for Democrats, and the Republicans are going to be dancing in the streets because they're going to be able to have control of the Senate and the House and Florida. What will they do with that with the Democrat in the White House? I'm not sure. I mean, I would imagine that just means nothing, that they'll probably create a bunch of drama and grievance, and I don't know if they'll actually propose any legislation, but we'll see. Now, let's see. Democrats' chance of winning if nominated. Well, look at this. If nominated, according to the betting odds, Pete Buttigieg has a higher chance of winning the general election if the Democratic Party nominates him than Biden, only slightly, but Harris has a less than 50% chance of winning the general if she's nominated, according to the gamblers, at least. So that's a really interesting stat there. And you can see how that has changed over time. Basically, you see the Buttigieg, let's say last month. Looks like Buttigieg has slowly crept up as the Biden administration gets less popular. The openness to Buttigieg goes up. And, Harris, also, she has moved up as Biden himself has done worse. So there you go. That's an interesting one. What about Republican primaries? So Republican primaries, chance of getting the nomination is highest for a gentleman. You see this orange colored line is represents Donald Trump. I don't know if they picked that color because of his appearance, but that's his color, orange. And it's a 38% chance of being the nominee. If not Trump, then it will likely be DeSantis. Very outside chance of Haley, and really long shot of Pence, Pompeo, Noem, and Scott. You could argue that, let's see, that this list here might be more like, well, if Trump runs, who will be his running mate? And if you look at this list, I mean, you could think, well, the Trump-Haley combo could be kind of interesting, right? Because he would want a female, ideally someone, I would imagine, who isn't quite as, who has a different, brings a different perspective. So Haley, as a female person of color, would be interesting. I don't know if Trump and another, like Trump DeSantis, that probably wouldn't make sense because I don't think there's enough room for both of their egos, frankly. Whoops. I just move our tab and I'm looking at an ad for tea importation. Okay. So you're probably not going to be Trump DeSantis. It could be Trump Haley. I'm pretty sure Trump and Pence are not really on good terms, so it can't be Trump Pence. Trump Pompeo would be just like two old white dudes. So yeah, wow. There's like no female Republicans. Oh, I guess Ivanka. Trump would be kind of odd. Wow. Yeah, there's only a couple of females, of women, Republicans that are in contention. Okay, so that's that. Now, in fairness, what about the Democrats? What does the Democratic bench look like in terms of diversity? Harris, obviously female. Clinton, female. Warren, AOC. Yang. Now, Yang is no longer a Democrat. I don't know why he's still on here, but he has a 0.3% chance. Cuomo, Jesus. No. So that's that. And then Biden out. What is that one? Chances that Biden will resign in the first term. Wow. The gamblers think there's a 20% chance that he's going to resign in the first term? Really? I would seriously doubt that. But that's what the gamblers think. That's higher than I would have expected. All right. So I think that now covers our betting odds. Basically, if you're a Democrat, you're going to get your ass kicked in 2022. And, hey, well, who's going to be president? Like, what the hell? Where's the presidential? Let's just find another site. Presidential betting odds. And let's look at predicted. All right, U.S. elections. So on this site, you've got Trump most likely as the nominee versus Biden. God, can you imagine that, guys? Another Trump versus Biden election. It's like, God help us. Republicans control the House. Ooh. In a generic ballot, the GOP wins wins control. Next speaker will be Kevin McCarthy. Harris will be on the ticket. Florida will stay. Rubio will be reelected. Oh my God. 2024 presidential election winner. Yikes. Can you guys imagine this? This dude here. Ah! More likely to be president of the United States in 2024 than anyone else is none other than Donald J. Trump. God help us. I mean, seriously, guys. We can do better. We can do a bit better than both of these. Frankly, we can do better than all of these. Although I will say Pete Buttigieg, I think, is a pretty smart dude. I know a lot of people don't like him in the Yank Gang, but he's a smart fella. Okay, so I think we did the betting odds. I think that's enough betting odds. I'm gonna cross. Oh, you can't even see my. There we go. We're gonna cross betting odds off our list. This is very satisfying. Okay, now we're gonna highlight some exciting candidates from ofthepeople.us, which is my nonprofit project that I started with a few other volunteers, including Ian and Don, in case they're watching. So let's go to ofthepeople.us and take a look. There. And we go here. Press that bad boy. Bam. Okay. So, who do we have on our list? Right now, trending, the top three are, this is based on approval voting. So you can click on their name, and this is at ofthepeople.us. Ofthepeople.us. I'll put that in the chat. Ofthepeople.us. Okay. And then you can click on approve, and based on whoever has most recent approval votes, they get kind of sorted at the top. So, yes, and I agree, Elizabeth. Another Trump presidency would be freaking gross. But we do have some fresh faces. Donna Imam is currently trending on Of the People based on recent approval voting. And she, you might recall, ran last cycle and came very close. Let me see if I can pull up the actual numbers. Hold on one second. Let's say Donna Imam Ballotopedia. You can see here that she ran in 2020, and it was a 53-44, so it was close-ish. I mean, it wasn't incredibly close, but it was close-ish. She was off by 8 percentage points. And that was her first, I think that was her first time running for Congress. So in theory, she should have a better shot. Now she's going to be swimming against the tide a bit, because we know that there's going to be a little bit of a tailwind for Republicans, and she's running as a Democratic candidate. But I actually had her on the Nerd Show last time, and I'm going to get her back on hopefully in the next month or two. And what struck me is that she's a very logical, like if you like the Nerds for Humanity channel, you may want to check out Donna Imam. And she's an engineer, as far as my recollection is. And let's see if I can find out here. Hold on. We go to About Donna. Yeah, she's an engineer. I think she worked in technology. She's got her numbers down, and she's a educated, thoughtful, data-driven person as far as I can recall. And her policy issues that she cares about are housing, healthcare for all, ensuring everyone in U.S. can go to college, trade schools, or cert programs without being in debt forever. Real pay for all. What's that about? Let's take a look. Solution. Requires that all businesses pay what it takes for an individual to live. Okay, so like a living wage kind of thing. Ensuring no American is forced to work more than 40 hours a week to earn this real pay. So you should be able to work 40 hours a week and cover your commute, save for retirement, get career advancement, and pay for your housing. Requires that businesses accommodate employees pursuing job training, program for kids under 18 to gain valuable work experience. Oh, and funds universal basic income. Yes. All right. Yeah, this Donna's good. I like the Donna. All right, let's see what else we got. Equal justice. So addressing inequality in the judicial system. Veterans. Addressing healthcare, homelessness, suicide for veterans, immigration, swift paths to citizenship for dreamers, climate. We need to diversify energy sources, invest in research to mitigate climate change. Yeah, very reasonable, in my opinion. So I like the Donna. So she's currently the #1 trending candidate on OTP. If there are other candidates that you see on our list that you would like to get more exposure, just vote to approve them, and I'll try and call out the top ones. And then in terms of the all-time candidates, so Donna's trending in terms of recent ones, but if you say all-time, the one that has gotten the most approval votes is Christy Seelock, who I think goes by Vizarant Viz. And she's running for the Oklahoma District 1. I don't think she has a campaign website. So she has her link tree here, but I don't think any of these is a campaign website. So when she does add more of that content, obviously she's for the general strike, so you can understand where she's coming from. I think she's for more legalization of marijuana, and I'm pretty sure she's UBI kind of supporter as well. So yeah, UBI, cannabis. So those are some of her tags. So you can, if you go to the list here on OTP and you say UBI, you can then see all of the candidates that support UBI. They are listed here. Now, there are some candidates who have elected not to be listed here, and then there's some that just don't know about OTP. But if you don't see your favorite candidate and you want them to be listed here, just ask them. David Kim's one of our newer candidates that is listed, and I've just talked to the Forward Party folks, and we're going to be adding their candidates on here too. So, think of OTP as kind of like a Yelp for political candidates. I think the other thing that I would want to do is actually let's take a look at the not just about the candidate, but their chance of success. So if we say, we will go back to Visitor Christy Seelock, and we looked at District 1 of Oklahoma, okay? So we can go here to, let's see, Oklahoma 1. See if I can pull that up. All right, so the last time it was a 63-33 win for the Republican. So if you assume that Christie will run as a independent, maybe as a Democrat, it's going to be an uphill climb for her because last in 2020, you had Kevin Hearn get reelected with 2 out of 3 votes, and you assume Republicans will be stronger this year since it's always like whoever wins the White House, they lose the House. So the Republicans should have an upper hand. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And it's actually one of the features that I'm thinking of adding to OTP, which is to say, what if for every candidate we had like a little scorecard and we could indicate, how competitive the district that they're running in is. So like we saw Donna lost by, I think it was, let's see, misquote. Donna lost by 8 points, or 9 points, 9 points last time around. So if you look here, our number 2 trending candidate is Brittany Ramos de Barros, and she's running for New York 11th. So we go here, NY 11. And we see that in the last race, this was a closer one. The Republican won, but only won by about 7 points. However, the Democratic primary, Democratic nominee was this guy, Max Rose. So who is actually Democrat/Independence Party. And so for Brittany, she would need to win the nomination and then take a shot at Nicole, who only won by 7 points. So, that's one of the things that we're trying to do for the OTP stuff, is to say, hey, let's highlight some of these candidates, but let's also keep it real and share data about the state of the district that they're running in. Oh, so Elizabeth is making a point about David Kim. So let's take a look at David, UBI. By the way, if you like David, help him out by approving him on OTP. I think you already did, Elizabeth, or I think you said you did on Twitter. I do not look at the records of who votes for whom. But you've got David Kim, and let's see what happened to him last. David Kim. So David Kim ran against Jimmy Gomez in the 34th district, and he only lost by, it looks like 6 points, which translated into for 12,000 votes, and that was his first time running. So you could argue that David Kim has a pretty good shot this time around. And hopefully we can get him back on the show and get him trending on OTP as well. He is on the trending list right around here. So he's doing okay. So yeah, that is me calling out some of the OTP. Mickey says Robert Garcia is running for Congress. Would like to see him on OTP. Yeah. What I can do, Mickey, is I will add Robert Garcia today, so then people can vote him up, and then I'll let Robert's team know that we've added him to OTP. We have taken the position that if a candidate doesn't want to be listed on OTP, that that we respect that and we can remove their profile. Although I'm starting to wonder, like, maybe it should be like truly like Yelp, where they list every business and people can say what they want about it. But for now, we'll add Robert Garcia and then give him the option. I think some candidates may not be comfortable being listed because if they're not a top trending candidate, they might feel like it doesn't capture the potential of their campaign. And what I say is, like, look, if you're a popular candidate, all you need to do is tweet out to vote to approve you on OTP, and you'll generally move up on the list. But that's the way the ball bounces. All right, so next, before we wrap up, we're going to say, well, let's see what Earl is saying here. I think David said something about Andrew during the mayoral candidacy. I think David didn't like something Andrew says, that he isn't the guy to lead our movement. Ooh, well, a little controversy there. Well, with Andrew, I think in general, my view is, like, he's a super smart guy who's called out a lot of things, and he's a fresh perspective. But not everything Andrew does we all agree with. I certainly have mixed feelings about starting a third party, but I personally would have hoped that he could help reform the Republican Party from within and lead the kind of UBI wing of reform the Democratic Party from within and lead the UBI wing of the Democratic Party. But obviously, he's chosen to go for the third party, and I would love to interview him. By the way, speaking of that, if you are on Twitter, hook me up, do me a solid, if you wouldn't mind. And hold on. Let's go here to here. And there's a pinned post where I'm trying to get Andrew to come back on the show and ask him about, like, hey, like, how did you think about starting the third party, and how's it going, and what's the plan? So we've had 147 likes and 90 retweets, but we haven't gotten Andrew to say yes yet. So please help me encourage Andrew. I think it might be that Andrew's team sees that the Nerds channel isn't pulling the number of views that it used to. That's for sure. But I still think we have hundreds of people who would watch the interview, maybe thousands. And it would be a great way for him to connect with some of his original presidential supporters. So Cash says, yeah, need at least 1,000 for an interview. Yeah, so let's see here. If we look on the Nerds channel, Nerds for Humanity, I bet we would get 1,000 views on his thing. Of course, now it's taking forever to load. We'll wait for that to load. Let's just do this. YouTube. And we say Nerds for Humanity. We do have 17,800 subs. But you see here, like, when I interviewed Steve Marchand, it had 225 views. The MAGA brother, 250 views. So we're not pulling the kind of audience that we used to. Part of it depends on the guest, though. I would imagine if we got Andrew on, we would surpass 1,000 views. Any rate. Oh, great. Well, thank you for Cash. Thank you for helping spread the good word and encouraging Andrew to come on the Nerd Show. One thing I will do, I would guarantee you that I would ask him some hard questions too. I would say, like, hey, well, what was the calculus on trying to reform the Democratic Party? Could you not advocate for open primaries and ranked choice voting as a Democrat? Could you not have more influence as a cabinet member of the Biden administration, or What about running for Congress? And what's the plan to get the Forward Party to critical mass? Like, why would you succeed as a Forward Party leader when the Green Party and the Libertarians have really struggled? And, who are you endorsing? Like, how would we measure success? So I would definitely ask Andrew kind of harder questions than I think maybe a traditional interview would give him. But I will also give him a lot of room to lay out the case. And I would for sure pre-read the chapters about the party in his book. So I would come prepared, and I would want to talk to him for about an hour. But we need Andrew. We need Andrew to say yes, and I know he's a busy guy, so I appreciate that. He's got other commitments. So, with that said, we're gonna wrap up with some of the things that I've been getting animated about on Twitter beyond asking Andrew to come back on the show. Well, here's me promoting this live stream, but then, here's interesting. I notice a lot of MAGA folks are saying that polls have indicated that majority of people who identify as Republicans believe that the election was fraudulent or stolen. And what I'm wondering about is, and this is kind of a rhetorical question, of course, is like if you really believe, honestly, if you really believe that the election was stolen and this was an attack on democracy and the Constitution, shouldn't you be marching every day to bring attention to this, and moreover, supporting new court cases to bring evidence of this so-called stolen election to the courts to address it and hold people accountable? If you want to talk about election integrity, then prove that these crimes were committed. And so I kind of feel like a lot of the MAGA folks, they like challenging and casting aspersions on the results of the 2020 election, but they don't bring the receipts. They don't prove it. I mean, they've lost 60 cases, but if you really say it's stolen and you love this country, then please bring the evidence to the courts and show it. And don't just say, oh, I heard on Twitter that there were thousands of ballots thrown into a dumpster in Texas. Like, bring evidence. So I don't understand. Like, so that was like something I kind of find very disturbing. It's like, come on, man. Like, if you're going to say it's stolen, then bring the evidence. Otherwise, like, take it like an adult and accept the fact that your nominee lost, the same way that many of us will have to take it like an adult and accept that Trump will win in 2024 if that's what the certified results indicate. And we can't just say, oh, it was it was Venezuela or whatever, and all of the machines were rigged. Like, if that's true, then we need to bring evidence. The same way that the MAGA people need to bring evidence. This was Liz Cheney, who's as Republican as it comes, and she's saying, based on what she's seeing as part of the January 6th commission, like that he was sitting in his dining room watching the riots take place, that Ivanka Trump went to the Oval Office twice to beg him to intervene, and he didn't do anything. Here's another interesting thing. It's kind of similar to vein to the, hey, if you're going to complain about a stolen election, please bring evidence to a real court, not just Twitter and InfoWars or whatever, like a real court where evidentiary kind of procedure is implemented, and you're asked to kind of defend the validity of your evidence. You can't just say, well, the cyber ninjas said this, or they were looking for bamboo in the ballot paper, which is literally some of the things people have said. This one is about Remember in 2020 when everybody was screaming about freedom and socialism and communism on the MAGA side? And those same people, many of the same people, are now saying that Twitter and Pfizer should be subject to more government control. And so, you know, that's another weird thing, which is like, wait a minute, if you're against communism, why are you in favor of the government telling Twitter who it can remove from its platform? Like, that's a private company. Cashed is asking a question. Thoughts on 16 and 20 both being called stolen by the losing party? I mean, I don't seem to recall. I remember after Hillary lost, there were marches of people with pink hats, and they were saying that they felt like Trump wasn't their president. But I don't think they said that there was mass voter fraud. In fact, I think it was Trump who won and then made accusations of vast voter fraud because he lost the popular vote. And then if you remember, Trump actually implemented a special commission to investigate voter fraud for the 2020 election, and they came up with zero. Now, were there Democrats in 2016 who said that the election was stolen? I suppose you could find some. But was Hillary out there every week after losing saying that this was stolen? No, I'm pretty sure she actually made a concession speech saying like, hey, I lost, like we need to move on. I don't remember Trump's concession speech. I think Trump might have been the first modern president not to make a concession speech, which is, I mean, you would think it would be kind of mind-boggling, but it's not because it's Trump and that's how he rolls. Okay, so my back to my original point, if you're using terms like communism in 2020 and then in 2021 you're saying, hey, we need to have the government run Twitter, like those don't go together, at least in my opinion. Let's see. Some COVID stuff. Me wishing everybody Happy New Year. Let's see. Celebrating healthcare professionals. Like I happen to know a lot of people who work in hospitals, and they are so freaking worn down after 2 years of this. Especially people who work in ICUs. Please, if you love America and you love your community, please do everything you can to reduce hospitalizations. And there are some known ways to do that. We won't go into that again. We've already talked about it. Vaccination, boosted, masked. Like, if you don't want to do it for yourself, like, do it for your community. Any rate. I think those are some of my top tweets. There were some Twitter debates where people were telling me like, oh, hey, where was it? Yeah, this dude Kimchi was saying, like, this is a good example of kind of, in my opinion, like twisting of headlines. So he says, it seems that getting vaccinated is making us more susceptible to the virus. And he links to a New York Times headline saying, Israel weighs whether to approve a fourth dose. Some scientists warn that too many shots might actually harm the ability to fight the virus. And so then I said, well, like, so let's take this as a case study. If you just read the tweet and you're like, oh, wow, getting vaccinated is making you more susceptible. And then there's like a link. So then what I did was I clicked on the link and I read the article. And then I said, wait a minute, the article says that some scientists are raising questions, that most think that an additional booster makes sense for the most vulnerable. So this is a good example of where, you know, you could kind of like twist information and say, it seems that maybe getting vaccinated is actually making us more susceptible to the virus, and then have a link to what appears to be a credible source. But then when you actually read the article, which I'll do here, it says Israel's considering whether to approve a fourth dose for vulnerable people. The panel of experts advising the Israeli government recognized that uncertainty, but on Tuesday recommended giving a fourth dose. So number one, the panel of experts actually recommended giving a fourth dose, concluding that the benefits outweigh the risks. Okay? Now, it does say here, but some scientists warn that the plan could backfire because too many shots might cause immune system fatigue. A few members of the government's advisory panel raised that concern. However, Prime Minister Bennett made clear he supports a fourth shot. Health Minister Horowitz suggested that a new round of boosters could get underway. So the price will be higher if we don't vaccinate, Dr. Boaz Lev said, the head of the advisor panel, describing the spread of Omicron as a tsunami or tornado. We don't have a lot of time. So this is a good example where you have to kind of read the full nuance, right? And you can't just say like, hey, I found this headline that says some minority of members of a panel are saying that there's trade-offs, and then interpreting that to mean getting vaccinated is making us more susceptible. This statement here is bordering on misinformation based on a read of the actual source that the individual is sharing. So I felt like, hey, we got to get better at reading articles. You know, you can't just like share these. And there was another thing that this individual was saying that really was like, I was kind of surprised by. Hold on, let me find it. Here we go. Let's go here. Okay. So I said, hey, look, it costs $20K on average to treat a hospitalized COVID patient. And then Kimchi says, well, you are aware that hospitals get money from the federal government if they have COVID-19. There is an incentive, which is basically kind of this not so subtle insinuation that, oh, the only reason people are getting hospitalized is so that the hospital can make money, or the hospital is indicating everybody has COVID so that they can make money. And so what I said is, hey, I think you should talk to some friends or family who work in hospitals. And I recommend this to anybody who's watching this and is suspicious. Talk to people who actually work in hospitals and say, hey, are there really people with COVID coming in? Or is it they come in with other things and then they get mismarked as having COVID, and they don't really die, but they get marked as having died? I can tell you I've talked to literally dozens of people who work in hospitals, and they all are crystal clear that this is a huge issue. They're tired. They're being overwhelmed by unvaccinated patients, and many of them are finding it hard to show warmth and compassion when they know that it's been 2 years and 85% of admitted patients for COVID are not vaccinated. And it's like, hey, there are other people that need care. And then Kimchi says, please don't assume that I haven't. No one wants to be given false information and to take a vaccine that has life-threatening side effects. Who is to profit out of this? Of course, pharma, the pharmaceutical industrial complex. So then he just shares a bunch of other stuff. So, at any rate, look, this whole pandemic, let's be real, it's complex, and it has all kinds of trade-offs, and we're learning new stuff with every variant. And so, yes, the CDC is going to change its guidelines, and I guarantee you that the guidelines will continue to change. But if you're in a hospital and you're getting treated by a doctor, you don't say, hey, on day one that you admitted me, you thought I had this, and now you're saying I have that. Therefore, I'm just going to do my own thing. Like, this is a fast-moving target. These mutations are new by definition, and we're doing our best. And so I personally feel like, well, I can do one of two things. I can trust public health experts who've been studying epidemiology and viruses and treatments and prevention for decades, or I can just kind of go with what stuff I hear from people, on social media who are not trained and don't have the experience and might be unduly influenced by the media that they consume. Now, you could say, well, Tom, you're putting a lot of trust in experts. It's like, yeah, that's modern civilization. Until I have evidence that what they're saying is not true, why would I trust strangers on Twitter? Why wouldn't I trust my own doctor who has a medical degree and decades of medical experience? Why wouldn't I trust, like, people love to say, well, so-and-so is a PhD and he says the vaccine doesn't matter. It's like, dude, who do you think works at the CDC and at the FDA? These are some of the most highly educated people around when it comes to health. And the other thing people say is like, well, this is all like the anti-Trump conspiracy. And it's like, really? You think the whole rest of the world is taking this seriously because they have something against Trump? You think like the UK and the South Koreans give a damn about Trump's 2020 election results? Like, they're done with that. They're dealing with their own public health crisis. You think the Israelis are secretly pushing extra boosters because they want to make Trump look bad? Come on. It's crazy. So, any rate, I think that's going to wrap up. This has been a long stream. Congrats to everybody who has stuck it out with me. And if maybe the last thing I'll do is, if you have any questions for me, let's do a quick Ask Me Anything for the last 5 minutes. I'm happy to give you my hot take for what it's worth. Go ahead and put them in the chat. In the meantime, while I'm waiting for questions in the chat, I do want to just give one last thank you to the people who make the channel possible, our members, and I will share those while I kind of give you guys a little bit of time in the chat to, if you have any questions or comments, I'll highlight them. Okay, so we're going to just give a quick shout out to our highest level members all the way up to VP. So thanks again, Bike, Laura Lane, Soldier One, and Kristen Slevin. And in order of oldest members, Kristen, Soldier One, Laura Lane, and Bike. And then we're going to do the hardcore. Again, in order of time of continuous support for this channel, Mike, Gene, David, DK, Jackalego, Kirsch, Mr. History, Byram, Mona, Susan Yang, Tony, Robert, Dean, Stat, Galessa, J. Perrin, AH, J. Brian, Vivian, Dana, Yoda, Jason, and Parth. And I'll just scroll by our entry level, but still loved verified nerds, and we will order them here and just kind of scroll through so you can just know that all the nerds out there who are supporting this channel and encouraging the use of data, charts, and thoughtful discussion. So with that, I think we're going to wrap it up. And I want to wish everybody, in focus, wish everybody, this camera, crazy, whatever. I want to wish everybody a happy new year, and hope you stay healthy. And if you haven't, please consider getting vaccinated and boosted. Please wear an N95 mask when you're indoors. And hopefully Omicron will be our last major mutation. Would it surprise us if there's another one? No. But, hope springs eternal. Oh, we have a question from Cached. Okay. Let's see here. Hey, Tom, thoughts on 2016? Oh, well, we already answered that question. And then Caleb is saying, I think he's saying Hillary was a horrible candidate. In that case, I kind of agree. But at least she conceded. Cash is saying that Liz Cheney is a fake Republican. I don't know. I mean, Liz Cheney is the daughter of Dick Cheney, who was the vice president of the United States and a member of the Republican Party, lifelong Republican member. She, if you look at her voting record, she has like a 99% conservative rating. So I think this is where some people conflate being against Trump with being not real Republicans. But it is possible to be a true conservative, small government, less regulation, more individual decisions, strong foreign policy, fiscal conservative, right? You can do that and be against Trump, and you can still be a Republican. So just because you aren't in favor of Trump doesn't mean you're a fake Republican. Like, aside from the fact that Liz Cheney is against Trump, tell me one other thing that makes her a fake Republican. Right? Like, just because someone doesn't like Trump doesn't mean they're a fake Republican. Let's see. Oh, we have some more questions here. Let's see here. Oh, here Caleb is saying you do get in an airplane. Yeah, I agree with that. Let's see. Oh, well, there was a bunch of other comments that I might have missed here. Ira saying, I work for the state now in public health, and they all say the same thing you just said, Tom. Many of those Q and Trumpist carrot chasers are, yeah, I know, it's unfortunate. I agree. Okay. Aurora Borealis. Do you believe Andrew Yang will ever be POTUS? Probably not. I think he had his best chance if he had stayed in the 2020, and then everybody else dropped out but him and Biden. And then if Biden had a huge stumble, then you might have had a surprise Yang nomination, especially at the height of the COVID crisis, that the basic income stuff would have played well. But now that he left the Democratic Party, like, clearly he's not looking to become president. I just don't see a way for him to get the electoral votes he'd need to win the White House as a third-party member. Now, he might have made the calculation that it's better to start a third party than personally to become president, which I would find very admirable. But to answer your question, yeah, I don't think I think he kind of, when you leave the Democratic Party or any party and you start a competing party, like, it's going to be hard to get support of those party members for your candidacy. Even, they represent pretty much half the country. So by starting a third party, you're not making friends with the Republicans. You're not making friends with the Democrats. The theory would be that you're making friends with this huge centrist kind of unrepresented group. But will they really break ranks with their party? I don't know. I don't think it's likely. I say that the Trumpers are, yeah, I tend to agree. They really do love Trump. Okay, Jeremy Salmons, thoughts on the Marjorie Taylor Greene Twitter suspension? It's a great question. In general, I would prefer that people be allowed to say what they want. I think the risk is that if you're in the middle of a global pandemic and someone is actively giving advice or credence to dangerous views, does that start to infringe upon everybody's right to, like, functioning society? So I'll give you an example. if there were a massive fire that was spreading across like California, and some people were out there saying, hey, the fire is actually good for you. Like, you should put gas on your roof and it'll actually help. And people believed it, and it made the fire worse, and it started burning everybody's house down. At some point, wouldn't you say, hey, Twitter, you are creating a mechanism for clearly dangerous, deadly misinformation? And I think that's what happened with Marjorie Taylor Greene. And she was given like 4 warnings. So it's not like they randomly removed her. I think she had been kind of made aware of that. And it does remind me of not just Marjorie Taylor Greene, but there's someone else who I find very sad, which is a member of Congress. Her name is Lauren Boebert. And if you look at what she talks about, you'll see that, you'll see that nothing she says is constructive. Like here she says, hey, I work in the U.S. House, not the German Bundestag. So I really don't care about Germany's speech laws. So this is very much hey, I'm going to wrap myself in the American flag, and anything from Europe is terrible. Which is ironic because, like, there's a lot of people in America of European descent. And I would imagine Lauren Boebert probably has some roots to Europe, and it's not terrible. And then the next tweet is, screw you, Fauci. Okay. With a link to an article on Breitbart. So that's the type of stuff that she links to. I am honored to receive the Defender of Freedom of Award at Let Us Worship in Miami. In Florida, we will protect the right of worship and won't let anyone shut you down. It's like, come on, man. You have a right to worship. Just do it outside in the middle of a pandemic, because you're going to die. And if you choose to kind of engage in incredibly unsafe behavior against all public health guidelines and then expect the government to bail you out when you get hospitalized, like, you got to pick a lane. Like, if you want to talk about individual liberty and accountability, then fine. Then be individually free and accountable. But when you spread the virus to other people and then you require extraordinary health care that's paid for by everybody else, like, that's not super free market freedom and accountability. At any rate. Then she says stuff like, the good guys are never the ones silencing the truth. Okay, well then support the January 6th commission. Let's find out what happened. I don't understand. Twitter should change its name to Pfizer. I mean, basically, like, if you follow these type of, now what is this? Okay, so this is my colleague MTG was suspended from Twitter. The risk of the COVID vax. It's like, we've had 800,000 people die of COVID. We have not had 800,000 people die of the COVID vaccination. Oh, God. Yeah, she's just very frustrating. So I think sometimes she just tweets basically, I don't think she's on any committees. I'm not sure what she does. But, yeah. Now she's saying that Biden is causing troops to get a pay cut. So basically, she's a little out there, if you ask me. So this is the reason why I feel like, in some ways, Andrew Yang's right, that the two-party system allows these kind of extremists on both sides to become members of Congress. And then with that audience, they end up kind of misinforming their supporters and riling them up so that they can get reelected. And it's the ultimate grift. But yeah, so sorry, I digressed there. But my thoughts on the MTG suspension is I hope it's not permanent. I hope it's temporary because I generally am, concerned about, I think it's good to give people an opportunity to talk. But when you're kind of knowingly misinforming people and encouraging people not to get vaccinated, or saying, hey, if you get vaccinated, you're more likely to die, it's just, in normal times, that would just be like some anti-vax kind of out there statement. But in a period where, there are still over 1,000 people every day in America who are dying of COVID. Every day, over 1,000 people in this country are dying because of COVID. So why would you go out of your way to discourage people from taking active measures to protect themselves and their community? The only reason is because you want to get reelected, and you like the idea of riling people up and creating this us versus them environment where nobody trusts anything anymore. And the only thing that matters is that you get donations and you get reelected. And that's just so small. It's so un-American. It's so unpatriotic. It's so against everything that you claim you stand for. Oh, it's just so, it's deplorable. Okay. Do you think the right-wing media will ever stop pushing propaganda? No, I don't, because I think they get rewarded for it. Like, the people who run Breitbart or InfoWars or whatever, like, they're making money. They're making money. Donald Trump has raised $100 million by creating this whole myth that the election was stolen. And he gets off on it, right? Like, he wants the power. He wants the attention. And he's not unique. He's human. But what's sad is that people are being taken advantage of to help him live out his weird fantasy. And the reality is that I think Trump enjoys running for office more than actually leading. He enjoys picking fights on Twitter more than actually governing. I mean, what policy? Like, they talked about an infrastructure bill for years when he was running for office. He didn't get it done. Why? Because they kept trying to overturn Obamacare. Anyway, so no, I don't think the right-wing media will stop pushing propaganda. I don't think the left-wing media will stop creating division either, because that's what makes people money. And that's what makes the world go around. It's money. And so the only way around it is if voters call bullshit and punish people for stirring up controversy. But I don't know. I don't know if voters will want that. I think voters like the drama too, deep down inside. It's sad. It's like your home team. Caleb, do you think all the coverage Donnie still receives is playing a part in his continuing popularity? Seems like most days the news covers Trump more than Biden. Yeah, I mean, like, it's interesting. If you ask the man on the street or the person on the street, what has Biden done in 2021? Most people probably would not name the fact that he passed $1 trillion infrastructure bill, and he passed over $1 trillion in economic relief. They probably wouldn't talk about that. And that's partly because of the media coverage, right? The media narrative is that Biden is just a complete disaster, and the only thing Biden did was pull out of Afghanistan suddenly. But that's kind of, it's this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, when the media wants to tell a narrative, that's sort of the content that gets shared, and it's sad. But hopefully, I'm hopeful that what I try and do is just focus on the data and logic. And hopefully this channel does its small part. But at any rate, Elizabeth, Happy New Year to you. Maybe RCV third parties may have a chance. They may. I think if you really want reform, my opinion is with OTP, we're trying, it's almost like a pre-primary. We're trying to surface and elevate candidates who wouldn't otherwise have gotten much attention to just get a few more donors, a few more volunteers. And over time, that can create pressure on the incumbents. But yeah, third party is another way to do it. Hopefully all of us together can pitch in. Okay, Ira's saying he's ready for a third party. Bobby's saying that Teddy Roosevelt ran as a third party candidate. Yeah, I would love to see more parties, not just third party, but like many credible parties that would force compromise. I just yeah. I just don't know how it happens. And maybe I'll look back years from now and say, wow, Yang was, way ahead of his game and I'm completely wrong. And I would love to see that. But I just, like, you run for president, you drop out early, you run for mayor, you lose. The next thing isn't logically you start a third national party. Now, it's easy for me to kind of be on YouTube and just kind of armchair quarterback here. But another option would have been to kind of put in the time and build on the base within the Democratic Party. But it would have required him to kind of take on a much smaller role, like a junior administration role or a congressional representative role. And that would have taken longer. And maybe Andrew feels like, there's an urgency. So, I respect that. And certainly he's done more than any of us have done for encouraging more reform and new ideas. So, I love Andrew. I take my hat off to him on the third party thing. Like, I hope I'm wrong, but it does feel, I mean, if you take the logic of Andrew dropping out of the presidential and saying, hey, I'm a numbers guy, the numbers weren't showing that I could win the presidency. The numbers do not necessarily show that the third party is achievable. I think to really get a third party going, you need someone more popular with more money. I mean, maybe Ross Perot was probably the closest one. Like if Elon Musk or, I don't know, someone like with a shitload of money and even more name recognition wanted to start third party, that might be a little bit more chance, but I guess we'll find out. Ira saying yes, it was MTG's fifth strike. Yeah. She has spent half of her 21 salaries on not wearing masks. Like, that's just weird. Like, just wear the freaking mask. It's protective. It even helps you against the flu. Yeah, I find Boebert, I have this hope that members of Congress, they have a certain amount of decorum and respect for the office. And with Boebert, I feel like it's very much like high school drama. It's just like not productive energy. And, you're there representing your district. You're there representing citizens. You're not there to kind of just like own the libs. Like, get something done. Anyway. Bobby says the problem with banning things like hate speech is who defines hate. I agree. I generally feel like we should err on the side of allowing as much free conversation as possible. Again, if you're in the middle of a pandemic and you're pushing arguments that are resulting in people getting harmed, and not just the people who listen, but then all the other people, since it's kind of like a public good, right? It's like if I smoke in a restaurant, it's not just harming me, it's harming everybody else. And if I don't get tested and don't get vaccinated and I go out and party and go into indoor spaces, and shed COVID everywhere, like that's not just your thing anymore. It's everybody else. So when it comes to Yeah, it's always, but I agree, it's always a hard thing to define these things. It's very hard. Shit, Tom's brother. Well, he doesn't have the thankfully, my brother doesn't have the influence that I think MJT did. So, I mean, you put it this way: if you're Twitter and you have one of the top, most influential people on your platform saying, "Hey, everybody should run into the street and you'll never be hurt because the chances of getting hit by a truck are close to nothing. And here's a link to, InfoWars or Breitbart or something." And then people start running into the street and getting run over. Or, like, at some point, wouldn't we hold Twitter accountable saying, hey, you knew that there was this dangerous information on your website and you promoted them and you did nothing about it? Like, at some point, wouldn't we say, like, wait a minute, that platform's pretty powerful. There needs to be some accountability there. So it's not just, it may not be that Twitter's trying to, like, police everybody. They also are trying to protect their own corporate interests, saying, like, the government may say, well, when you have that big of a platform and someone's promoting this dangerous information and it's resulting in these negative repercussions and lives being lost, that you have some accountability too. So, I guess if Congress passed a law saying that Twitter can never be held accountable for what people use its platform for, even in the most kind of clear cases, then maybe then they shouldn't have banned MJT. But there's also an issue of, like, as a Twitter company, like, do you want to support things that result in people dying? Like, that's obviously, a long conversation. Yeah, I think my brother, the MAGA brother, he doesn't, thank God he does not have an audience. I bring him on this show mainly to expose the craziness of some of the thinking. And, he's a college educated man who's run successful businesses, but the kinds of stuff he listens to, it's really kind of twisted his mind, in my opinion. Okay, let's see. I think, wow, there's a lot of chat debate going on. All right, I think we're good on the chat questions and commentary. If you are still here, please like and share. It helps the channel get exposure. I'll have some more guests coming on soon. I'm actually going to be interviewing an intern who volunteers for Nerds for Humanity, who's a junior in college, and we're going to discuss how where she gets her information. She's a student at Bowdoin College. She's spending her junior year at Oxford University in England. And I guess that would qualify her as being a millennial. I think she's a millennial. I don't know. But many generations younger than me. And we're going to talk about how we collect and process information in this age. Is it podcasts? Is it social media? Is it New York Times? Is it Breitbart? Like, where do we get this stuff? And so it should be interesting. I'm guessing that we probably will apply similar principles like critical thinking and looking at data, but who knows? So we'll have her, and then we have a bunch of other candidates coming on, and we will be promoting more of the People candidates. And as a reminder, of the People.us is not a political party. It's just an open platform. Even a Trump candidate could be listed there if they wanted to. And it's just based on approval voting. Now, the only time we would ever remove someone from OTP is if they were espousing, like, clearly egregious and hateful policies. But if they just happen to be a libertarian or a fiscal conservative or social conservative, that's fine, as long as it doesn't go into, like, something, demeaning to people of different races or backgrounds, or clearly spreading misinformation. All right, we'll see you guys again. Goodbye, nerds.